My name is Dr. Brad Shuck. I'm an associate professor at the University of Louisville. I teach organizational leadership and learning, and I've been studying and trying to uncover the psychology of employee engagement for the last 15 years.
Great. So you talked about employee value proposition during your presentation, during your address in this conference. So how do you see the role of HR in creating employee value proposition in organizations?
Yeah, well, I look at employee value propositions from two different lenses. So the first is I think HR has a huge role in influencing and driving an organization's employee value proposition. But I also think that each individual employee in an organization has the opportunity to influence that value proposition. So it's not just what HR does, it's not just the policies, it's not just the procedures, it's not just the way that we recruit, the way that we retain, it's not just the career development, but it's in the small interactions that we have with each other every single day. And so while I do think that HR has a prominent role in driving an organization's employee value proposition, I think each person in the organization has the unique opportunity to influence and transform someone's experience of work. And because of that, I think each person can influence the employee value proposition of the company.
Thank you. So now let's talk about leadership. You talked about leadership also, the abilities, the kind of attributes that a true leader has in an organization. So how do you define a true leader of an organization which is having that multicultural approach?
How do I define a true leader who can... I think this is a really good question. Because I think we can take it from a true definition sense of leadership, and I can give you a bunch of textbook answers around leadership. I don't think that's what happens in practice. I think the way that someone is able to influence someone, that elevates them to a position of leader. And I would distinguish between the idea of leadership, which is this practice and this idea that we might cast out to people and say, well, I want to be I want to embody this idea of leadership, but rather a leader is someone who takes ownership in a company, who has a positive influence, and that person doesn't necessarily have a positional authority of leader, but it can be anybody within the organization. I think that's what makes the idea of an employee value proposition completely radical and a transformational way to view the organization of tomorrow and the way that HR is shaping the global context of work, not just here in India, but across the world.
Okay. So what is your thought about employee engagement initiatives at workplace? Like what challenges that these organizations are facing in this digital era, like everywhere digital transformation happening, technology playing a very important role. So what is your thought? Like what do you think that are the challenges which are prominently seen from your experience?
So I think the first challenge with employee engagement is that people don't know what it is. So organizations often define the idea of engagement as profitability or turnover ratings or some other kind of metric and number that they chase. And so what I would encourage organizations to do is to define, what does it mean to be an engaged employee in this company? What does this look like? What does it feel like? And then how do we not only hire for that, right? Hire in for the right talent, but how do we put opportunities in place that allow people to experience engagement? The other thing the second issue that I think is problematic with the idea of employee engagement is, as I mentioned in the talk, is this idea of the objectification of engagement, that we divorce or remove the human element from the idea of employee engagement, and we look at it as top 10 lists are easy to do, or this training of the month that we're going to do, and that's not engagement. Engagement is, and we've defined it in our research as a work-related positive psychological state that's operationalized by the maintenance, intensity, and direction of cognitive, emotional, and behavioral energy. And we believe that it's this unique place that someone comes to in their workplace when they believe there's a strong and positive employee value proposition, when they believe they can give their best, and when they believe their voice matters. And that when they believe those things, they give this gift of engagement. And so I think organizations think that they can mandate engagement or that they can directly drive engagement. What organizations can do is create the culture that allows engagement to thrive, and then employees will naturally give that. And they will respond in proportionate action, just as the theory of reciprocity would suggest.
So how do you define workplace agility? because that is one of the factors which drives the innovation, drives the organization forward and achieving its objectives, achieving its goals.
Agility is when an organization is able to move quickly and employees within that organization are able to make decisions that allow that organization to move in very nimble and very quick ways. Keep in mind that creativity and innovation is driven by engagement in some respect, that our research would indicate that when employees report high levels of engagement, that they also report high levels of innovation and creativity. And I think that's because creativity and innovation happen in these really fragile places that require a sense of psychological safety. People to raise their hands in meetings and give their ideas and to feel like their voice matters and contributes to the conversation that's going on. But agility, in my opinion, is the idea and the practice, the actual happening of an organization being able to nimbly move and quickly move based on data that they have.